She won't tell you this, not directly, not clearly, not in a way you can rely on, but her behavior already did. You just didn't read it right because most men listen to words and ignore patterns. They wait for something explicit, something clear, something they can trust. But that rarely happens because attraction is not communicated directly. It shows itself indirectly, through behavior, through small shifts, through consistency, or the lack of it. And the problem is, those signals are not obvious. They are subtle, easy to ignore, easy to misinterpret, especially when you are emotionally involved. Because when you want a certain outcome, you filter everything through it. You see what confirms it and ignore what contradicts it, so you end up confused, not because there are no signals, but because you are reading them wrong. It usually starts small, nothing dramatic, nothing clear. She responds a bit slower, does not expand as much, does not add energy the same way. Still there, but slightly less engaged, and each of those moments alone means nothing. You can justify it, explain it, ignore it, but over time, a pattern forms. And that pattern is the message. Not one moment, not one reply, the direction, and most men never look at direction. They focus on moments. One good reply, one long message, one sign of interest, and they hold on to it because it feels real, because it gives them something to rely on, something to believe in. But isolated moments are often misleading. They can reflect mood, context, timing, temporary emotion, but patterns reflect intention, consistency, real interest, or the lack of it. And this is where the mistake happens. You prioritize what feels good over what is consistent. You hold on to highs and ignore the overall direction, and that creates a distorted picture because now you are not seeing reality. You are seeing selected moments filtered through expectation. There's another layer here that most men completely miss. Not all mixed signals are confusion. Sometimes they are clarity, just not in the form you expect. If she is inconsistent, sometimes present, sometimes distant, that already tells you something. It tells you the level of her investment, not zero, not high, in between. And that is a specific position, not random, not unclear, defined. But most men treat it like uncertainty, like something that needs to be solved. So they try to push it forward, clarify it, define it, move it somewhere. But that changes the dynamic because now you are forcing movement instead of reading it. And when you force something, you distort the signal, you create reactions that do not reflect real interest, only response to pressure, only response to your effort, and that increases confusion because now you are no longer seeing what is there. You are seeing what your actions created. There is also the opposite side. Sometimes the signal is positive, but still misunderstood. She invests, she responds, she shows attention, but not in an obvious way, not exaggerated, not constant. And because it is not intense, not overwhelming, you underestimate it. You think it is not enough, not real, not strong, so you try to increase it. You try to accelerate it. You try to make it clearer, more visible, more defined. And in doing that, you interfere with the natural pace. You introduce pressure, expectation, direction, and that pressure reduces what was already there because now instead of choosing to move closer, she is reacting. And reaction is not the same as interest. Reaction is temporary. Interest is consistent. And most men cannot tell the difference because both look like movement, but only one has direction. This is why things start to fade, even when there was something, not because she changed, but because the dynamic changed, because you stopped observing and started interfering. There is something even deeper. Behavior over time is the only honest signal. Words can be adjusted, explained, hidden, but behavior, especially repeated behavior, is very hard to fake. It reflects priority, attention, real intention, and that is why patterns matter more than anything else. If she moves toward you consistently, there is interest, If she stays the same, there is comfort. If she moves away, there is disengagement. It is simple, but not easy to accept, because accepting it means you lose control. You cannot negotiate behavior. You cannot argue with patterns. You cannot convince someone to consistently move toward you. They either do or they don't, and that is uncomfortable. So instead, most men ignore patterns and focus on moments. They look for signs, signals, hints, anything that gives them hope, because hope feels better than clarity, even if clarity is more useful. And that is why the same situation repeats again and again. Different person, same confusion, same mistakes, same outcome, because the problem is not the situation. It is the way it is read. So if you want clarity, stop waiting for her to explain. Stop waiting for something obvious. Stop waiting for a clear statement and start looking at what is already there, not once, not occasionally, but consistently over time, because that is where truth appears, without effort, without explanation, without noise. And once you see that clearly, you do not need answers. You do not need confirmation. You do not need to guess, because behavior already told you everything you were waiting to hear. Most men just ignore it because they do not like what it says.